Hello, thank you, everybody. I think we can hear me. My name is Louis Leuven. I'm the executive director of the San Francisco Fleet Week Association. And make no mistake about it, the city and county of San Francisco are huge supporters of the United States military. San Francisco Fleet Week Association is a nonprofit, all-volunteer organization that was formed to help organize and execute Fleet Week. And Fleet Week in 2012, like 2011 and 2010, has adopted a mission to promote the humanitarian assistance and disaster response missions of the United States military. We also, of course, will have the Blue Angels and the great air show that comes with that. The ships will be coming in, and the wonderful Liberty Call that the men and women in the armed forces will have in San Francisco. The Fleet Week Association also, as I say, has a humanitarian assistance and disaster response mission, and we will have exercises for the men and women in the military, along with the civilian disaster response community. We'll have a senior leaders seminar taking place on Thursday and Friday, in which the military and the civilian community learn from one another on how to provide disaster response. I should mention that on Wednesday morning, out at Ocean Beach, the Marine Corps and the Navy are setting up what's called a shock trauma platoon. It's a kind of a field hospital, what you and I might think of as a MASH unit. And coming into Ocean Beach, in cooperation with the National Park Service, is what we call an LCAC, which is an acronym, Landing Craft Air Cushion. It's a giant hovercraft, and there'll be a demonstration on how medical supplies will be brought in by amphibious means into San Francisco during a disaster. In addition to that, out at Lake Merced, we will be landing helicopters to demonstrate medical evacuation procedures to the civilian community. Having said all that, we have a cast of characters here to speak today and will be available for questions afterwards. We have Major General Mike Myatt, retired Marine Corps. He is the chairman of the board for the San Francisco Fleet Week Association. We have Joanne Hayes White, fire chief, Monique Moyer from the port, Ann Cronenberg from Department of Emergency Management, and I have to emphasize the partnership that Fleet Week has with the Department of Emergency Management. It goes beyond your imagination in the work that we do together to create this disaster response program. We also have Consul General Doyle from the Canadian Consul. We have Commander Foster from the Coast Guard, Colonel Chet Jolly from the United States Marine Corps, Lieutenant Galvin from the United States Navy. And of course, we have somebody who is an incredible supporter of the Fleet Week program, Mayor Ed Lee, who I'm going to turn over the microphone to now.
Thank you, Louis. Welcome. This is the beginning of a great number of events in our city, but I have to say Fleet Week is really one of my best events. It's one that I've celebrated since just being here, and when Senator Feinstein had helped reignite it, we were very glad for it to just grow. And of course, it's a week-long recognition of our armed forces, Navy, Coast Guard, Marines. They're all represented here today, and I want to give a big shout out and thanks for the men and women in our uniforms who are protecting us. As you know, the world isn't safe. There's a lot of things that are happening, and we have to always be ready and vigilant. And I think a week out of our very busy calendars to recognize the men and women is really an extraordinary opportunity to do that. I also want to give a very big thanks to the Fleet Week Association. It's a great blend, and to have the chair, General Myatt, former General Myatt, to head that, it's been wonderful to work with. He's kept us very focused on what we need to do. And then for our departments that have already been signaled out today, it's been wonderful to work with them as well, both administratively and in organizing this event. This event has become international. That's why our Canadian Consul General is here to celebrate with us and to give that international recognition as well. You know, in addition to celebrating, in addition to having this great fun and seeing the Blue Angels fly in practice, and the parade of ships that we have, and have kids and families visit the boats that will be docked on Pier 3032 and along Pier 80. We also have, over the past few years, done, I think, the remarkable job of practicing what we preach. Because the humanitarian role of our military is one of the most important roles that they can play in all over the world. And for us in San Francisco to experience it right down to the very neighborhoods that we have, who want to learn what it is, our relationship, how do we work together when a huge disaster might befall us? That is why I'm excited for some of these new aspects to keep rolling out every year. We've done all the other things that major cities have done. We have invested in technology. We've got great websites that Ann Cronenberg and the rest of the city have embraced with our technology partners. We have, of course, Alert SF, which I'm personally on, and I receive those messages very religiously of anything that might happen. Of course, with critical mass this past week, I was on that cell phone all the time to see whether or not anything in the city was out of character that we really had to make sure we covered, but all the other events as well. We have a great website in 72hour.org. That's been our mainstay for the public to learn and understand what it is to be better prepared. We've also had, of course, more fun ones for people to engage themselves, families and kids, on Quake SF, a Quake Quiz SF, and to kind of learn through a series of questions what it takes for people to actually be better prepared as well. We have had over 190 sirens in our city that utilize the multicultural languages to warn people about. We've been testing them very regularly to make sure they work. Well, the new things that we're doing to bring disaster preparedness, to bring the relationships that I think are most valuable with our military, with our Coast Guard, with our Navy, and our Marines, is to land an amphibious hydrofoil on Ocean Beach at 10:30 this Wednesday to not only demonstrate, but to allow people to understand these are the kind of things that may happen with them should there be a disaster that closes down our major arteries of transportation. We've got to get medical supplies. We have to get food and other emergency equipment into the city. What are those fast ways? How do we work these relationships so that neighbors along Ocean Beach, along our west side of the city, become very familiar with the practicing of this? And I'm excited to see the equipment demonstrated and to see the officers out there engaging with our volunteer NERT programs and the others that we are always engaging and making sure they practice these things. You know, we are a world-class city. When you look at the events that are happening for this whole month of October, you'll realize we'll probably have an additional 1 million people on top of our residents into the city at various times. We are always concerned about everybody's safety as well as their enjoyment. While they're having fun, there are people that work 24/7 to keep them safe in our city. And I want to thank our fire chief because she represents one of those key departments that do so. That's why I was out there on the chili cook-off this Saturday, Chief. 13 different tastes within 45 minutes. Myself. I paid for that on Sunday. But again, I do that because I want to be with the men and women that serve 24/7, just as our military and our Coast Guard do. Our Coast Guard's very busy every single day being here. They're out there on the water watching for everyone. They've obviously been involved in some life-saving activities already. And then to have the ships that carry our Marines and our Navy. And I really thank them for joining this whole week of both celebration but preparedness. Our humanitarian activities that go on, that get practiced, that engage our neighborhoods are one of the most important and exciting things that we could be doing. So we take these Fleet Week opportunities not only celebratorily, but very seriously as great opportunities to practice. And we will always be ready as a result of that. And I want to thank the people of San Francisco for allowing us to be more ready and to allowing us to spend resources and money and federal monies and stimulus monies to make sure that our communications and all the things work, because we'll be that much more of a successful city and a city that's prepared. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to call up now Major General Mike Myatt, the chairman of the Fleet Week Association.
Thank you. Thank you, Louis. I want to take the opportunity, first of all, to thank this group of volunteers that have worked the last 10 months to put this event together. They are wonderful people and wonderful citizens of the city and county of San Francisco to make this thing happen. I want to thank also the agencies of the city that have worked with us. First of all, the Department of Emergency Management. I mean, we've become really kindred spirits in this whole process. And we have working with the port, we've been working with the fire department, the police department, and who knows where else in this city, but there's just a lot of things. I guess most of all, our Martha Cohen works with us on this, and thank you, Martha, for what you did to make this happen. I do want to say the importance of the mission of the humanitarian assistance disaster response. We have a saying in the Marine Corps, never put yourself in a position where you have to introduce yourselves on the battlefield. Get to know each other before something happens. And that's what this is about. And we've gotten to know these military and these civilian folks that are going to have to work together when a big catastrophic earthquake happens. We don't know when it will happen. We do know that one of these days, everybody predicts we're going to have one. There's a lot of other events that go on during Fleet Week, and this is the fun part. The air show is back. The Blue Angels will be here, and they've got a great air show with a lot of different aircraft. There are band concerts all over this city. There's a band concert that we're going to do in Oakland. We're trying to make this more than just San Francisco, the Bay Area. There's a band concert at Vallejo at the Maritime Academy this coming Friday. And we have a band concert at the Marines Memorial on Monday night. There's a canine event on Sunday at Pier 80 to show what military working dogs do to save lives. Now, there's some events that we're not opening generally to the public, but I want to tell you about one that's very, very special. You know, we had a conversation with the fire department a few years ago, and we recognized that one of the deficiencies in the training in the military was the ability to do urban search and rescue, because you can do more harm than good if you don't know how to do it. And so the San Francisco Fire Department in 2010 trained non-commissioned officers and petty officers to how to do urban search and rescue. And that paid off in the earthquake in Japan when some of those petty officers that had been trained by the fire department in 2010 were then sent ashore in Tokyo to help with the urban search and rescue. So it has a real meaningful purpose. And as the fire department says, we know how to do it, but when the big one hits, we're all going to be victims. And we want to make sure that anybody that comes in to help us knows how to do it. There's several other events that go on during Fleet Week. It's on our website at fleetweek.us, and I encourage you to look there. You'll see all the events, including the opportunity to go down to Marina Green to see what we call Humanitarian Assistance Village. And there the military demonstrates the kinds of capabilities they have to do humanitarian assistance, including bringing water out of the pier, out of the bay, purifying it, and then they'll hand you a cup of it, and you can see how it tastes. So, but anyway, we're really looking forward to it, and we thank all of you so much for your help and your contribution to make Fleet Week a big success.
Thank you, General Myatt. I can't tell you how much I've learned about maritime operations since I've been involved with Fleet Week and the complexities of bringing in all of these ships. We have American Navy ships, United States Navy ships, we have Canadian ships coming in, Coast Guard ships. They all have to be put somewhere. And working out those complexities are the folks at the San Francisco port, and I'd like to call up Monique Moyer.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming. There isn't much that I can say on top of the eloquent words of both the mayor and the general, so I think what I will do is invite you all, please, to come to the waterfront. Our job is to not only welcome the vessels and give them safe berthing, but also to welcome the men and women in uniform who come ashore. And it is a great place to meet these young men and women. Last year, I had the honor of talking to many of them, and I got to realize that several of them were coming home to meet their families. They may never have been to San Francisco, they may never have sailed under the Golden Gate Bridge, but they were coming into San Francisco Bay to reunite with their countrymen and their families, and in some cases to meet their newborn children, which I just found an amazing feat. And so in addition to welcoming the beautiful ships, and we will have all kinds of ships at the waterfront, most of them passenger ships, a couple of them high recreation ships, but in addition to recognizing and experiencing those, I hope you will stop a man or a woman in uniform on the promenade and welcome them, and if you feel so inclined, please buy them a meal. So thank you very much.
There you go, guys, free burgers. Thank you, Monique. And General Myatt had talked about the urban search and rescue program that the San Francisco Fire Department puts on for the Navy and the Marines. And that is a very successful program. We started in 2010. In 2011, what we realized is that every Marine is a rifleman and every sailor is a firefighter. And so conversely, the Navy last year, and they're going to do it again this year, invites the fire department to onboard the ship to learn shipboard firefighting techniques. And with that, I'm going to introduce Chief Joanne Hayes-White.
Good morning. Thank you, Louis. Mayor Lee, General Myatt, it's a pleasure once again in the San Francisco Fire Department to welcome the men and women in uniform, and thank you for what you do to protect our lives each and every day. The service that you do many times without seeing your family, as our port director indicated. We're very excited to once again welcome and celebrate the military here in San Francisco. It is a great opportunity for that cross-training effort. We look forward to having some of our firefighters on board the ship to learn from the military. Conversely, we also look forward to year 3 of a fairly sophisticated structural collapse scenario whereby we'll be training the men and women in uniform related to that humanitarian assistance in the event of a disaster, and how to go about structural collapse search and rescue techniques. So once again, welcome. Glad to be a part of it, and here's to a great Fleet Week. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And planning. It's an amazing thing. The military does it painstakingly. They have backup plans for the backup plans. And in 2010, when we partnered up with the Department of Emergency Management, we held on board the USS Macon Island at the time, which is the big aircraft carrier that you see docked over at Piers 3032. We invited command staff and senior leaders from Department of Homeland Security, both federal, state, and local organizations, and we went through a whole briefing on the process to bring in Department of Defense assets. It doesn't just come automatically. It's not their main mission, and there's a whole program and process that has to be followed in order to bring in the assets. And we partnered up with Department of Emergency Management. We did a briefing on what they call DSCA, Defense Support for Civilian Authorities. In 2011, we ratcheted up with a tabletop exercise on mass casualty evacuation. And in 2012, back in August, we actually had a functional exercise where we set up command posts and we test interoperable communications techniques and techniques on route clearing for mass debris route clearance. All of that is the lead agency in planning that Department of Emergency Management with Rob Dudgeon and Diana Vandenberg and Jill Raycroft. And it's all made possible by the wonderful department that is run by Ann Cronenberg, and I'd love for her to come up here and just say a few words.
Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here today. As Louis mentioned, Department of Emergency Management has a huge role in Fleet Week. What you see on the surface is a fun week. We plan for the entire year to come up to this 1 week. We had a meeting last week in our office with the support staff who are doing all the background work that you, the public, never see. There were 56 people who turned out. The intricate planning that takes place to make Fleet Week and other activities occur is unbelievable. It makes me so proud to be a department head in the city and county of San Francisco. We have learned since 2010 that we need to meet and get to know the folks that we will need to rely on in an emergency. We all know in a disaster we can't do this by ourselves. We are going to rely very heavily on our military partners. General Myatt saw in 2010 that having a big party for Fleet Week was great, but that we needed to do something more. And it was under his inspiration and leadership that we began the Humanitarian Assistance Disaster Response Program. So it's really building these relationships over the years, continuing to grow, and going from the one-week event that we started with for Fleet Week into something that we're doing all year round. So I'd like to thank especially my staff, Rob, Dudgeon, Diana, all the people who've been working on this day and night. Right now, this week, it's Fleet Week every day, every second, every minute. But next week, it will be Fleet Week for us again, starting for 2013. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's true, the planning cycle for Fleet Week is really year-round, and we have programs going on year-round as well with the exercises and lectures and various ways to connect all of our parts. So I think bottom line is we want you to come down to Pier 80, where all the ships will be docked, with the exception of the USS Macon Island, which is coming in again at Piers 3032, where we'll have the Senior Leaders Seminar. If you're interested in coming and observing that program, it's very interesting. Thursday, we have a series of panels and keynote speakers, including the United States Navy Surgeon General. On Friday, we have former Secretary of Defense Perry will be speaking. And on Friday, as is tradition since we started the program, we invite the neighborhood volunteers, the NERT volunteers, people who volunteer their time to learn how to save their neighbors. So we bring them on board, and we include them in the program, and then they get a nice tour of the ship. And we feed them a lunch. Everything with Fleet Week seems to have a lunch attached to it. But I think that everybody will remain. If you have any questions and want to talk to anybody more about the Fleet Week program, thank you very much, Mayor Lee. Thank you, City and County of San Francisco, and thank you all for coming out.